What is the most important lesson learnt from COVID-19? Most grown adults are nasty and have to be reminded to wash their hands. And don't cough in your hand. My God, do grown adults not know this? I stopped shaking hands long before the pandemic after realizing that far too many people do not wash their hands after using the toilet. I also stopped going to public swimming pools after a friend told me he just peed in the water while we were in and told me everybody is doing it. No, not everybody is doing it, only disgusting people, but turns out about 30% of people are that disgusting. I work in child care, ages 3 to 4, and make sure my kids wash their hands properly after they use the bathroom. I like to reinforce good behavior, so I tell them that was good hand washing when they do it right. Now they are excited to get that praise and ask me if they did good hand washing. I'm trying to create more good hand washers so we have more clean hands in the world. They do need to work on coughing and sneezing into their elbow though. The biggest takeaway I can come up with is how underserviced rural areas are. The local grocery store can't offer curbside pickup, DoorDash doesn't exist here, all the answers for what we should do in a pandemic aren't feasible where there's only 500 people. How comfortable I seriously am with just myself. My wife died in late November 2019. The whole world shutting down and me being forced to keep myself company for months from March 2020 was the best thing that ever happened to me. Gave me the space I needed to get my head right, and took away all the social pressure surrounding grief. COVID saved me. Marketing is everything. If they has marketed face masks as the best way to protect yourself instead of protecting others, we would have actually been out of this in 2 weeks like initially promised. People are selfish and horrible to each other. Your employer will spend more telling everyone that they value your work than showing it to you. Corporate profits don't trump control, even though for many companies 2021-2022 were banger years. You gotta get your butt back into their ill-equipped office because they say so. Government made rules they didn't follow themselves. The veneer of control is thin, supply chain is very sensitive. People care more about things being easy than thinking about them critically. I work in advertising, and this Uber campaign is a perfect example of what you're talking about. To be clear, I did not work on this. They basically spent a bunch of money to buy billboards thanking drivers, all while pouring millions of dollars into their efforts to block Prop 22 in CA, which would have recognized their drivers as employees eligible for benefits, rather than contractors. Just-in-time methods caused complete havoc in manufacturing companies even before our current supply chain crisis. I worked in contract manufacturing in the US for 7 years for various different companies. It keeps these businesses' funds more liquid, allowing them to go after more business, but it causes so much extra labor and deliver delays. I have seen so many situations where products were half built to various stages and handled and damaged twice as much, or where assembly staff just got paid to wait around, kept busy with sweep this, clean that stuff that didn't generate revenue, and so many conversations about what are we missing, when can we get it. One time we rented warehouse space to truck half-built machines too, so that we would have space to keep half-building machines. Just in time is a brilliant, extremely dangerous idea. The things you mention in the second half, wasted work in progress and moving product around without generating any value, are exactly what this type of philosophy is supposed to reduce. But as you've clearly experienced, many people don't have the faintest idea how to make that work. I started to write this reply, but you absolutely nailed it. Lean philosophies are semi-universal, but they still need to be carefully tailored to a business. People can't just go and sweep the whole smorgasbord onto their plate and expect good results. As to some people not knowing, it can start at the top. They know how to say the words just in time, and then that's the expectation. Other people have the new responsibility to make it work. What slips between the cracks is putting somebody in charge of figuring out if it even makes good sense to try. What's that old saying? We're all just 3 meals away from total chaos? I've been thinking about that adage a lot the past few years. Edit, holy hell, it never ceases to amaze me when a throwaway comment resonates like this. The last time I got anywhere near this number of upvotes was when I casually said I've never been to a Waffle House. During COVID I was laid off for months and spent that whole time keeping up to date on everything going on in the world. I mean everything I possibly could, every single day. I reached the point of obsessive and the massive amount of negative crushed me. There was so much bad going on, so much suffering that eventually, one day I just set it all down and said I'll check in a month. Best decision I made that year, the only thing that kept my sanity. Just taking time away and not bathing in it every day. Edit, holy cow, thanks for the silver. Hope everyone is doing better now. 2020 was the longest decade of my life. Edit, holy cow, thanks for the gold. Take care of yourselves people. I took up Quokka videos as a therapy for the news. Everybody already being infected helps out, that causes literally any death that doesn't destroy the brain to become a zombie, so that's the best part of 150,000 people per day on average, 2017 figure. Throw in hospitals acting as massive centers of infection as the first victims show up, and then doctors and nurses being abundant targets, etc. Deaths would spiral as healthcare systems failed and people died more from other formerly preventable illnesses/wounds. Then people start panicking and looting, which results in even more deaths. And it sort of just spirals from there. This is why Fear the Walking Dead could have been so cool to see how it all unfolded, but of course, we all know they decided to just skip over that and become another standard zombie show. Other zombie media usually includes an illness kick-starts the apocalypse. The zombie Fallout series, for example, starts out with a global pandemic spreading around, and it's the flu shot that actually ends up spreading the zombie virus. The author isn't anti-vax or anything, he just used it as a plot device many years before anti-vaxxers started screaming about COVID vaccines. I felt the same way. I scoffed at the movies because the government would never let it get that out of control. People can't be that stupid. Narrator, but they were that stupid. One could say even more stupid than that. Now I can plausibly see how a zombie apocalypse could take over the globe because people would act like it's a bigger deal than it should be in the beginning, think they could possibly be immune, think they could single-handedly kill off many zombies themselves, fight the killing of zombies because those are people that can be cured, and be the cause of it spreading faster. Those of us smart enough to try to protect ourselves would be at the mercy of the ones who just don't listen to reason. This pandemic showed me the worst of humanity. I work in childcare. We learned that children really need socialization. You would think with time off parents would work on things. Kids came back to daycare, not potty trained, still using a pacifier, speech behind, refusing to share. It's better now, but it was really interesting seeing a child pre-COVID who you potty trained come back months later acting pretty helpless. I don't know if it's parents, the lack of social pressure, or just some other thing. But it was an interesting experience. That I can be in the best shape of my life, what's essentially my prime at 31, taking vitamins every day, working out all the time, and still some virus can come along and take it all away, leave me bedridden for most of 2 years and almost 3 years on, still dealing with nerve damage effects from it. It's more clear than ever that our elected leaders are not role models, nor are they competent enough to protect or help the average citizen. After all of this, it's surprising people still idolize their favorite politicians. What a cluster the past several years have been. Well, where do people think these politicians come from? They don't fall out of the sky. They don't pass through a membrane from another reality. They come from American parents and American families, American homes, American schools, American churches, American businesses and American universities, and they are elected by American citizens. This is the best we can do, folks. This is what we have to offer. It's what our system produces, garbage in, garbage out. If you have selfish, ignorant citizens, you're going to get selfish, ignorant leaders. Being isolated does more damage than I realized. Barely any human contact was all that I wanted due to my anxiety, but once I got that, I ended up doing absolutely nothing. Despite having all the time in the world. It was distressing and I wanted to go out and see people again. If anything, avoiding human interaction made my anxiety worse. People don't give a flying about you. Truly and fully don't care how their actions affect those around them. I've lost so much respect and affection for so many friends and family because of how they conducted themselves at the initial stages of the outbreak. Lot of shit came to light about them that I still have difficulty reconciling with myself. My fiancé and I drove across the country to see my aunt, who was dying of aggressive brain cancer, specifically so we wouldn't have to get on an airplane and risk catching something. My dad, other side of the family, parents divorced, made fun of me and said I was overreacting for not wanting to get together with his side of the family inside of a house, not distanced at all, in October 2020, pre-vaccine, knowing fully that they didn't wear masks and still socialized with masses. He has proven to exhibit this behavior throughout his life, but I thought time and mortality might have softened him up a bit. Nope. I think COVID changed my view of family. I have an immunocompromised child and my grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc. are all anti-vax. Having the same blood doesn't mean that you value the same things or even the same people. I ended up cutting out all the family that chose their politics over my young child's life and then boasted about it. We had one winter where my grandpa came to my house and then bragged about not wearing a mask in an airport/on the plane. Meanwhile, he had hugged my kid and interacted closely with him. Between the anti-vax shit and the usual Christian dismissal of my mental health, it just became healthier to no longer allow these people into my life. My true family got smaller but happier and healthier, and I have literally zero regrets about it. Biggest lesson is we have an insane amount of imbeciles who do not understand basic science, community transmission or common sense. Wasting time screaming do not comply. Informed consent. Moo writes. Don't trust the government. Or socialism communist plandemic. Even as they themselves end up sick and damaged. As a country, we are unless we strengthen education. That roughly 78% of my fellow Americans are actually very people with no morals, and if something bad is happening, it has to happen to them, for said individuals to care. I had go through a pandemic while my wife almost died from cancer. Cancer plus a worldwide pandemic. A worldwide pandemic in which millions of people died. A pandemic in which I couldn't even convince my dad. Of all people, who is the nicest give you the shirt off his back if he had to kind of person, couldn't even get him to wear a mask around my wife so she wouldn't die from getting sick. Why didn't he believe in masks? He most certainly would believe anything a doctor told him before the year 2016. Why would he choose not to believe in common sense anymore? Oh, we all know why. Donald Trump and the new era of never telling the truth. I could go on for days about the things I learned during the pandemic. I really could. I've learned that I absolutely have no trust and absolutely no hope for humanity whatsoever. And I was right to think that.